After screening of all its 23 interested aspirants, the All Progressives Congress can now concentrate all its energy on delivering a successful national convention to choose its flag bearer for the 2023 election. With the opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, already a step ahead after selecting former Vice President Atiku Abubakar as its flag bearer, the All Progressives Congress, APC, is now left with the major task of selecting someone who can match Atiku in the 2023 election. One of the names hoping to get the golden ticket is Tein Jack-Rich. The oil magnate, who has passed the party screening, will be hoping to secure the ticket of the ruling party ahead of the 2023 election. The presidential hopeful has said that his presidency will strengthen Nigeria's value system and create 26,000 jobs in each local government area on his first day in office, and that he will not take a single loan throughout his presidency. Joining us on the show this morning to discuss how he intends to secure the ticket of the ruling party is Tein Jack-Rich, a presidential aspirant under the APC. Good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Jack-Rich. Quickly, what are your chances? Especially now that the party is divided, your party that is, over the president's indication that he will need the support of the governors to be able to get a consensus candidate. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think if the party goes in that direction, you will be the favored one or not?
Well, I think what we need right now is, who is able to deliver the deliverables. And that's the most important action item that has to be on our plate. So I believe strongly that I have the competence, I have the capacity, I have the energy, I have the know-how. That's what I do for a living, and I can do this job. If they put us on the roll, trying to really figure out who is a person that can do the job, I think I'm going to stand 110% chance in clinching the nomination based on my content, based on what I've done. My pedigree speaks for me, and I believe I can, sure. Because, the governors are all looking for the best hand that will be able to do the job. And the president is also looking for the best hand that can do the job. So in that regard, yes, for sure, I stand a great chance.
Right. What do you make of the comments that President Muhammadu Buhari made that have raised quite a bit of dust, talking about how he was supportive of the governors while they sought their successors, and he would like the governors to equally support him? He was talking about reciprocity. What is your take on that and what that could portend for your presidential ambition?
Well, I'm a party man, and we have to respect the position of the president. And whatever he says, I'm a team player. So I believe strongly that it's for the wellness of this great country and for the party. So I will stand by the president's decision 110%.
All right. Jack Chen, I've got two questions for you. Nigeria has a big debt problem. How would you settle it out? The debt is so much now that they say that we might be spending 100% of our revenue to service debt very soon. What would you do concerning debt? Another thing you said you'll create 26,000 jobs in every local government area the first day you get in Nigeria. By my calculation, you are saying you will create 20,124,000 jobs. How would you create 20 million jobs where successive governments have not been able to create even 5 to 10 million jobs in a full administration, but you want to create 20,124,000 jobs in just one day?
All right, so, the numbers that I roll out there, that's about 5.1% of the total unemployed and unemployed labor force, Unemployment based on the last MBS data is about 33.3%, and the underemployed is about 22.8%. So if you talk about 33.3%, it means about 22.19 million of the population, while the 22.8% is about 15,900,000. So my pledge for 26,000 jobs per LGA is about 20,124,000, just as I mentioned. That's about 51.5% of the unemployed and unemployed workforce. Now, how do I do this? I'm a development agent, so what I do is creating jobs. You know what I'm trying to say? Now, if you look at interconnecting the North and the South through River Benue and River Niger, they all discharge into the ocean. So I'm going to open up that economic access and create economic pipeline. That alone will deploy about 6,000 marine equipment and land-based equipment. Now, if I allocate 90 persons working 3 shifts, that's about 540,000 direct employment that I'm going to create. But the most important thing is that I have to generate the competence level to a point where they can be semi-skilled to be brought into that value chain, and then they will be able to add to the economic growth, and then we can pay our debt. I know that the debt level right now by 2023 will be about 100 billion that you talked about. So that has been part of my concern, and this numbers also has to the inflation number. If you look at our GDP that was released by NBS last year, it's about 176 trillion Nigerian naira. And 42% of that number is being chopped off by inflation. So that brings the GDP lower level to, in US dollars, that's about $177 billion. So you have about $424 billion in GDP. When you adjust that to inflation, numbers, it dropped down to about $177 billion. So to mitigate that exposure and then to be able to have a strategic economic surplus, you have to enable your unemployed and underemployed population of the labor force to be brought into the strategic economic value chain. So we got to open up the economy by identifying new economic pipelines. And I'm a development agent. What I do all through my life is creating jobs. I started business at the age of 23 with a capital of 25,000 naira. So with 25,000 naira, I've been able to develop my industrial capability and business to a multi-billion-dollar level. So you know what I'm saying? So for a person who is not a development agent, this is going to sound like a little...
Mr. Jack-Rich, you've not still answered my question, with due respect.
Yeah.
How will you create 20,124,000 jobs? You said you will open up marine channels. You have people work shift. You've just been able to tell me how to create a couple of jobs. How would you create 20,124,000 jobs? Step-by-step methodical approach across all the 774 local government areas in Nigeria. That's all I want to hear.
Excellent. So the first thing that I do is that identify these women and youths that needs a job, and then have them recorded in every ward, and then send it data to the local government, and then have trainers and come in and train these guys with different skill sets. In the oil and gas sector, for example, they'll be brought into oil field intelligence gathering. They'll be brought, into patrol. Not only that, they're going to be brought into clearing and monitoring the access that is needed to increase and improve, production. Not only that, they're going to be brought into the different training centers that we're going to have that is called Center of Excellence. First, you have to train this workforce. And when you train them with the relevant skills, then you brought them into the market value chain. So we will train these guys and then get them into those low-hanging fruit that is creating a lot of inflation. Because if you don't train them, you can't bring them into the value chain, even if they are semi-skilled or skilled. So you need to train them in such a manner that they fit that opportunity that you want to use to drive profitable economic growth that is hitting our inflation real hard. So we'll train these guys, for example, in the agricultural sector. We will train a lot of these youth with the relevant, what I'll call skill required to mechanize that industry. Industrialization is key for me to have these guys brought into the market value chain so they become, the strategic mechanisms that will enable us to have profitable economic growth as they are brought into the relevant industrial value chain. So we train these young boys and girls
Okay, but
and then bring them into to the industrial value chain.
You've not broken down the sectoral analysis. You know how the steps. You talked about agri.
In the oil and
How
gas
many
sector, for
million
example.
jobs can you create in agri? How many million can you create in oil and gas? What are the steps? But I think you will answer that again. Dr. Bati, please, over to you so I don't take a lot of the time. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the other day we were discussing on this program a statement by an IMF representative that Nigeria faces the prospect of spending about 90% of its revenue to service debt, which means that the next president of Nigeria is going to inherit humongous debt. And then you say, oh, when you become president, you are not going to borrow money, you will not take a single loan throughout. How about the existing debt? How would that be paid? The source that I'm quoting also said that, in fact, up to about 7 trillion naira will be spent on fuel subsidy alone by the end of 2022. So it's not as if whoever is coming into power by this time next year is coming into paradise. The person is coming into a very difficult terrain. So given these realities, how do you just say, well, one of the things you were quoted as saying, apart from 26,000 jobs, 20 million jobs in one day, the other thing you were quoted as saying was that oil and gas will solve security problems in Nigeria. How? When the same oil and gas crisis created many of these problems that we are facing. If you could just, explain those statements accredited to you on the day of your declaration of interest in the presidency of Nigeria.
Okay, so let me tell you one thing we need to recognize, right? The oil and gas is a catalyst for any major industrial boom that we can ever have, because these are a low-hanging fruit that has deep ticket in terms of foreign exchange earnings, that you can enable technological procurement or collaboration thrive as you activate different economic engines. Now, my administration will be able to move oil production to about 3 million barrels a day. Gas flaring alone, I tell you, we're flaring almost 1 billion standard cubic feet of gas. That itself is about over $3 billion per annum revenue that we can bring into the value chain. With 3 billion barrels production, we're making over $6 billion every single month. And I tell you what, 5% allocation to every single ward will enable a lot of those local communities that are struggling to activate their economic engine, have access to capital. And then those youths and those women that I'm talking about can be trained, and then with the relevant skills to be brought into the strategic economic value chain. If we earn a humongous amount of money from oil and gas, taking advantage of windfalls and whatever that will be, we will be able to allocate a large sum of that money into servicing our debt. The first thing we need to recognize is that the ability to produce what we consume will reduce inflation, because then you don't depend a lot on trying to put together the nairas that you have to procure foreign exchange to import what you need to consume. So the savings realized from that alone will go in servicing our debt. And let me also let you know, sir, please, you need to recognize that 42% of our GDP is taken away as a result of inflation, because we're consuming what we're not producing. So I understood the challenges of 2023. And that's the reason I'm talking about creating these quick wins, providing jobs for the youth at the local level, and then have oil and gas become that catalyst. Listen, the only way we can activate economic engines is to have access to technological advancements so we can industrialize. The world is talking about, maintaining cleaner environment. That's reducing your greenhouse gas emission. How are you going to get funds to develop other aspects of the economy if you don't have access to foreign-based earnings? So the oil and gas is a key engine. I can move production to 3 million barrels a day because I'm in this business for 24 years. I know how to do it. I did it before. 2008 to 2010, when we had lots of issues within the Niger Delta, the Eastern Swamp operation, I held production to a point that they couldn't believe it. I took care of a lot of those youths who were agitating, brought them into the economic value chain, gave them jobs, trained them, and taught them how to be a people who earn what they work for and have that sense of self-dignity. You don't have to go and break pipeline infrastructure, whatever. Even if you're paid $50,000 every month, that's legitimate money that you earn. And I teach you how to convert that into other value chains so you don't depend on what you don't earn. So the oil and gas is a key economic engine to activate every other sectors. And I'll tell you what, 5% of whatever we earn from there can go into the 8,900 watts that we have. So that even at the local community levels, you have been able to take away a lot of those social issues that creates unrest, that makes it difficult for commerce to thrive at the local level. So I know what I'm saying, that we can pay our debt for sure. When I say that I'm not going to be looking depending on loan, I know what I'm saying, because I know there are enormous amount of value that we're losing in the oil and gas. Just harnessing the gas that is flared alone, just enabling production to be maintained at a number level alone and engaging those community use and creating that integration creates over $6 billion every month. Do you know what $6 billion is to the financial industry in our country? The banks will be able to lend at a lower rate. Not only that, exchange rate will drop. Not only that, inflation rate will drop. Not only that, we will be able to use that to activate the agricultural sector. For example, in the Northwest, this country has the capacity to be able to take advantage of the cotton and textile industry that Kaduna has lost. That industry alone on the continental Africa is about $31 billion, because the crave for African fashion is going off the rafters. So we have an enormous amount of engines that can create employment opportunities. But the key thing is that we need access to technology. We need access to foreign-based capital. And where is it going to come? Where is it going to come from? The low-hanging fruit from oil and gas. So I know what I'm saying, and I know how to get the job done.
Right. From a lot of your responses, I can infer your response to my next question, which is about security. Talking about ramping up our oil production, one of the challenges in that regard is security. You've talked about, the economy having a long-term effect on security. When people are, not hungry, they're less likely to agitate, to be violent, and what have you. But I'd like you to address that issue of security specifically, because Nigeria is one of the most terrorized countries in the world. We're spoken of in the same breath as Iraq and Afghanistan, for heaven's sake. And also the fact that people cannot sleep with both eyes closed, with rampant kidnapping, armed robbery, and what have you. Let's talk about security first, and then I'd also like you to address another issue that we face in this country, that of national unity, or lack thereof, which is also driving some of the insecurity that we experience in this country.
When you have about 39 million and 8,000 Nigerians within the labor force roaming around, not being able to secure unemployment or are underemployed, you're going to be having a rampage of a lot of these social issues. So one of the ways that I believe we can curb insecurity is to provide jobs at the local levels. If you look at the rural-urban migration is about 51%. So you have a bunch of these youths who are struggling for greener pastures, moving to the urban area so they can get jobs. And when they cannot find jobs, they say the idle mind is the devil's workshop. The key engine to mitigate that is to create jobs at the rural environment, and also to make the urban area pretty much friendly for white-collar jobs and other stuffs to thrive. So security without providing jobs is like, a man saying that, I'm sorry to use this word, I'm visiting Israel without going to Jerusalem. So it's important that we provide jobs on the table for a lot of these teeming youth, because if they're not engaged, they're going to engage us. No matter how high your fence is, if you have hungry and hangry unemployed youths, they will rampage the whole communities and the city. Today, if you go to local communities, you see a lot of these young boys and young girls under the tree doing nothing. They're angry, they're so upset. So all they do is what? How do I survive for the next day? And then they can be taken over by the left-wingers. So I believe strongly that to deal with security, you must deal with those social issues. Social justice for those who are weak, opportunity for the widows, children, opportunity for orphans, opportunity for the physical challenge, for our aged ones. And the key thing is the infrastructure to actually make that happen and then create that economic gateway to industrialize the economy is through large ticket foreign exchange earnings that would need to still come from the oil and gas. It's so important. That's one of the ways we can actually solve the problem of insecurity. Not only that, that sector is also important to be able to strengthen our defense system, strengthen our police, get them real trained, strengthen our military, get them rule trained, incentivize them and all a lot, and then make them feel that sense of, love, which is also pretty much important. So these are the key elements that I believe strongly that we need to have a peaceful environment. I mean, it's an unfair rating for you to say that Nigeria is compared to, Iraq or Afghanistan. I mean, that's not a fair rating, to be very honest to you.
It's actually a
they're
fact.
just saying that because...
Okay. Real quickly. So, you keep saying how you built a multi-billion-dollar oil and gas business. Would you like to tell Nigerians how did you build that business? And secondly, I'll go back to the job issue. Give me a sectorial analysis breakdown of the sectors that you create those 20 million jobs in. And in your analysis, you also forget that there's a middle class. So take, for instance, how many jobs are you going to create in agriculture, in green energy? And you were also saying that on day one you will train people. Is it the same people you want to train that you want to count as job created on day one? There are over 40 sectors, if you check the MBS data, that makes up the GDP of this country. How many jobs are you going to create in mining? How many jobs are you going to create in hospitality? How many jobs are you going to create in all of that? So give me a sector by sector breakdown of all the jobs you want to create. And how are you going to create 20 million jobs? You see, training, all those things, blah, 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 imprinting, those are buzzwords. Nigeria is serious business. You see, you have a country on its knees now. This is serious matter. Not time for buzzword. How?
Okay, let me engage you on the key topical issue that you mentioned and how you're going to create a job. My interest is I work with data, right?
Me too.
So if I talk about creating 20 million, 124,000 employment opportunity, it's designed to hit hard on a particular element on the index that is hitting us real hard in terms of inflation. So what are the economic element? What are the microeconomic element that is hitting our inflation real hard? Number one is food. We consume over 373 million tons of food every single year. That's over 28 trillion Nigerian naira. 42% of that number is what we import. I mean, we don't produce it. So that itself hits our inflation numbers real hard. So if we're going to move to the multi-trillion-dollar economic league, which is part of my vision that you haven't really talked about, we need to address this key line item. And what is the next item? Energy, petroleum products, transportation, medical tourism. So these are the key elements that is hitting our inflation real hard. And when I talk about creating 20 million jobs, which is
Mr. Jack-Rich,
which is 55.1.
Mr. Jack-Rich,
yes.
If you say you create 20 million jobs, then you must have a job plan already written. I'm telling you, give me sectorial analysis.
Exactly.
How many, oil and gas, how many million jobs are you going to create there? Give me a sectorial analysis breakdown based on what you have written down, you have already. That's what I want to see. So let's forget the explanation.
Okay.
Just give me the breakdown. Oil and gas, how many million jobs? Agriculture, how many million jobs? This, how many million jobs? That, how many million jobs? So because time is fast spent, sir.
Okay, thank you. So please, what I'm saying is, not on account of this interview, but what I'm saying is, my 20,124,000 jobs will go into 6 major microeconomic elements. These are sectoral based. Number one, agriculture, right? Agriculture industrialization alone would take nothing less than 5 million opportunities, to be very honest to you. And then we'll go into energy, electricity generation. That is about $14 billion in terms of what we import, generators, maintenance, and all that. And then you move straight to transportation. Transportation alone. So this is a line item that hits our inflation real hard. That's what I'm saying. So these 20 million jobs will be allocated to these different 6 microeconomic elements. So I may not say to you that, okay, I'm going to give this 1 million or 2 million. There are certain variables that are key. So, but what I'm saying is that I have identified a block economic base that is taking away a lot of our value, that is making us have low purchasing power parity and reducing our currency to almost nothing. So these are the key elements that is hitting us real hard. Please, sir, our GDP is $426 billion. When you adjust it to inflation, it's about $177 billion. So what is yanking these numbers away? I've identified that the 20 million, 124,000 jobs will be spread within these 6 economic line items that will enable us to see how we come out of this, multi-billion dollar to $1 trillion. Not only that, I'm also saying to you, sir, that it's important to recognize that having known the key economic issues, I've identified 33.3% of the unemployed numbers. With what I'm going to bring in, I'm reducing that by 55.1%. So let me tell you that I'm not just saying what I want to say because I want to say it. I'm saying it because there's a ballpark challenge that I will need to identify all the line items to allocate every opportunity to it so that you can begin to see the numbers rolling out when MBS come out with their report. So I'm not just telling you that there's a problem. I'm telling you that there is a solution, but I have a ballpark solution. And in line with the unique elements, I will allocate each employment opportunities with the right technology and the right capital that will come from the oil and gas, like I always talked about.
Well, we seem to have run out of time. Otherwise, I wanted you to share with us your experience at the screening panel. Then maybe someday there will be an opportunity for that. Thank you very much, Tein Jack-Rich, for joining us on the morning show. Okay, quickly, if you can do that in 1 minute. If you are still there.
Okay, quickly. So basically the screening was super good. I was able to showcase my nuance, I was able to showcase what I know how to do and what I can debate in terms of policy and supporting with the right legislation. And like I said, I've been 24 years in the oil and gas business. I grew up as a service provider, first one of the labor force to a service provider, and then now exploration and production operator. I stepped out of the business. I have a management company that I've been running the business, watching it from behind the scene and all that, and knowing how to create jobs. So basically what I'm talking about is vertically integrate the economic value chain, having core practical experience and hands-on in terms of the key elements that drives our economy, which is oil and gas, foreign-based earnings, into policy level that will activate other economic engines and ensuring that justice and equity is administered in the course of delivering my political leadership. So I believe strongly that as we continue to run this, I'm going to be available the more on your show to really talk about a lot of those core areas that I believe that we need to promote our economy and get it into the $1 trillion economically.
Well, thank you very much, Tein Jack-Rich. We wish you all the best. Thank you very much indeed.